Hi, I'm Kripakran. I'm working on History, which is note-taking slash knowledge base slash internet copilot app. Um, Clearly, I need to work on describing it better. I thought maybe I can talk about that here. Have some trouble describing it because I the words you use to describe it can mean different things to different people. So I just need to come up with a better description. Um, so when I say knowledge base, some people think it's, to a lot of people, knowledge base means you put together all these notes and documents for other people who come to your website. It would be like an FAQ or something like that. It's, you create something for other people to use so that they don't come to you with a lot of questions. It's like for customer service. That's not what history is. Um, and history, if I describe history as a note-taking app, then people immediately think of apps like History, I'm sorry, Evernote and um, Notion and those guys. The way History differs from them is that the emphasis is on uh, things being with History. The emphasis is on things being automatically done for you. But with Evernote and Notion, you are the gardener. You put things together and you tend to it, and you are the one who is making all those connections with Rome. You have all those links. um, so I believe that you shouldn't have to do that yourself, because all the information is there, and the app should be able to do that for you. um, so and then if I were to say it's an internet copilot, because you don't have to make your own bookmarks. History does it for you. You don't have to put together your own thing. History sort of enhances your whatever you do on the internet. Um, I suppose that's generic enough, but it doesn't tell people anything. Like they come to the website and they see history. It's your internet copilot, and they don't know what that means. So as you can see, I'm still, even a year in, working on how best to describe it. Um, so I think it's I can come up with it, and you know some may say if I can't describe it in a short, succinct manner, then maybe it's a solution searching for a problem. I don't think it is. I think it's very useful. I find it very useful, and my current users do too. I just need to find a way uh, to describe it in a way that resonates with a lot of people. Um, there are different aspects to history, and I think the power of history as it is now, and I hope to do a lot more soon, as it is now, is how it all brings those elements together. Um, so, in a way, in that way, I'm hoping it's similar to Emacs, right? And Emacs has the same issue. It's Emacs has been around forever. It's loved by a lot of developers who use it, and then misunderstood by other developers. And let's kind of dive into that a little bit. People compare Emacs to Vim, and I think that's an unfair comparison because yes, both of those pieces of software can be used to edit text, and they often are. Um, but editing text is just one small thing that Emacs does, right? And then the other camp, the Vim camp, argues Well, Emacs shouldn't be doing all those things. It should only be editing text. But do one thing and one thing well. Emacs does do one thing and one thing well, which is evaluate Lisp expressions, right? So it's basically your current day Lisp machine, if you will, right? Um, so it's how you view it. With that, if you view it as Emacs as that, then everything else makes sense, and it does do one thing and one thing well. I mean, we could argue whether it does that one thing really well. There is always room for improvement, but that's the general idea behind that. Uh, think of uh, think of Linux, not the kernel, GNU Linux, if you will, including the userland. It does it brings everything together in a cohesive way. And it allows for the different Unix utilities to do one thing and one thing well, right? Without all that interoperability, what good would one doing one thing well in isolation be, right? Um, anyway, bit of a rant, I suppose. My point being, there is a lot of power in cohesively bringing information together and having all those different pieces be connected in a way. The way I would connect that back to history is you have your tree style browsing history. So as you browse the web, history keeps track of how you got to different places, and then if one of those websites is worthy of, or you have something to say about something for a later time, you take notes in one of them, so that's kept in the context of the browsing history. And then you can tag those based on your arbitrary scheme, and then you could also put those things into collections, in various collections, and the collections are called notebooks, and notebooks can be shared with a lot of people. So the whole workflow is kind of brought together in that way, right? The design philosophy behind history, I would say that's similar to Emacs rather than Vim, if you have to make an analogy. There is a lot of complexity in the integration that someone has to do it, and there is a lot of power if one tool does it and does it well and does it seamlessly, and that's one of the things that history hopes to do. I'll keep working on figuring out how to describe history better for the first time users. You just arrive at history.com. Right now, I call it the effortless knowledge base, which kind of makes sense to me, but may not make sense to people, or maybe misunderstood by people who have a different interpretation of what a knowledge base is. And I don't want to say personal knowledge base, because one of the key things about history is how great it is to use as a collaborative tool. So it's not just your browsing history that's kept. You're able to quickly pull out parts of that, share with somebody. I'll describe this one use case, which is kind of a simple one, but maybe interesting to think about. So let's say you have tons of tabs. You're looking at them because you're working on something. For example, you're trying to hire somebody, hire an engineer, right? So you're looking at all these profiles. going to their GitHub, because of that, in a browser window, you have tons of tabs open. Okay, so now there are all these tab suspender Chrome extensions. They like if you want to save that for later, but they don't do the job that you could ideally do, which is, what if you want to open this browser window in a different computer of yours, or actually send the whole browser window with all those tabs to your coworkers so that they can take a look at it. You can do all that with Histre. You save tabs, all of your tabs go into a notebook, and then notebooks can be shared. So and there you have it. Like you can just send it to a coworker, and they can click open all, and they get that tab restored, right? So think about it. It's a simple use case, but it integrates with this idea of notes, which notes are some piece of optional text associated with the URL. And then notebooks are collections of those notes associated with whoever you are sharing that with, right? So these simple concepts of notes and notebooks and teams, when combined, create this powerful combination of like, oh, you can do all of these things, right? Like, and even sharing Hacker News upvotes. Yeah, this may seem like a completely separate use case, where you are browsing Hacker News and you upvote a few stories, and what if you want to share those upvotes with some of your friends? Okay, so in the Histre universe, an upvote becomes a note, right? And then all those upvotes are stored in a notebook, in your Hacker News notebook. So now they can be shared. So when they are shared, when that notebook is shared with some of your users, when they go to Hacker News, your upvotes are shown in the Hacker News website itself. So like saving tabs and Hacker News upvotes seem like very different things, but they are still the same thing because they are notes collected into notebooks, shared with teams, right? And this use case appears all over the place. Anywhere you capture a bit of information, and there are groups of bits of information, and then it's put together into one collection, and then it's shared with people. So when you have these powerful primitives, you can combine them and do really cool things. So that's sort of the underlying thing. So I need to find a way to describe that better, and I'm hoping that by describing it a few times here, I'll find a way to describe it in a very in a way that people can really immediately connect with. And please let me know if you have any ideas about how I can do that better. So that's all for today. Talk to you tomorrow.